Bikes! Hey guys, it's Morgan coming to you with another video. We're going to be putting a top end in this Husqvarna 300. So join us. We're going to start by taking the seat tank off and then washing the thing so we get it all ready to rock and roll. Alright, so we got the seat and tank off, and now we're going to go take her out and pressure wash it because let me show you something here. So as we're putting a piston inside this thing, we don't want any of this dirt and dust falling into said motor. So the best thing to do, honestly, when you're doing a top end on any of these things is just take all the stuff out of the way that you're going to get out of the way and then wash all that. And you don't have to go crazy with the pressure washer, but you definitely want to get all that dirt and grime out of there so that, like I said, it doesn't fall down into the motor while you're working on it. So let's do that. Alright, ready to start taking apart this TE300. So I'm going to start by draining the coolant, getting the skid plate and the pipe and everything out of the way. Then we'll slide the cylinder off and take a look inside there. This is just a maintenance deal, so everything should be golden. It runs great from what I understand. So yeah, here we go.
We can,
So next we got to take the motor mounts out of the way right here, and then on all these KTMs or Huskies, it's the same bike, but it really helps to get all the coolant hoses out of the way. You really can't slide the cylinder up without getting this cross member hose right there out of the way. And this one's got the thermostat and all that junk, so we'll get the, we'll get the motor mounts out of the way, then get all the coolant hoses out of the way, then we'll take the covers off of the power valve and get everything ready, and then we'll take it apart. So these are 45 Torx. So one of the cool things about the coolant hoses on KTM, at least the OEM clamps, is that it's just a 6mm bolt to undo it. So you just need a 6mm socket, and you can get a way better purchase on it than with a Phillips head screwdriver. Also, you can get it at angles that would be really tough with this screwdriver. So yeah, we can go ahead and take this whole mess of junk off and out of there. So I got something to show you. As always, there's always something new going on. But take a look at this. So you see that right there? That's from him hitting something here. Obviously the guards, the bulletproof design guards, saved the radiator, but this came back and it hit probably the pipe. Well, the pipe wouldn't have come out this far. Anyway, it actually probably hit right here, probably shoved it all the way back and hit here and bent this. It wasn't leaking, so that's like super duper good, but we are gonna have to do something about that before we put it back together. I'll show you what we're gonna do, but we can fix that. Alright, so this one actually houses the power valve actuator. That's the actuator. As the motor spins, as it goes faster, this actuator goes up to open up the power valve. Well, the deal is, see this little guy right there? That's the little pin, cotter pin kind of thingy deal, anyway, that holds it, that keeps it from wanting to pop off. So that is a very slippery little guy, and you want to be really careful not to lose it. So what I do, got a little flat blade guy here, keep your hand on it, come around here to the back, you know, pop it off like that, and then you pull down and hang on to it real tight. Then you're gonna come in here and that pops loose. What I do with this is I take it, put it in there with the bolts that go in there, and I take it very carefully over to a safe spot that can live all by itself, and I won't lose it. Now we're ready to take the cylinder head off, and then we'll slide the cylinder off, but we'll start with the head. So when I'm doing a top end, I always like to take a look at the spark plug just to see how it's burning. It's okay. It's got some residue and some kind of oiliness on there. I don't know. Looks a little bit on the rich side. He is running Electron, and a lot of times those things are running a little bit rich, so that may be part of it. Well, obviously we're going to put a brand new one in it for doing a top end. A lot of times these heads are kind of stuck on there a little bit because the O-rings, and so you're going to kind of give them a little tap with a nice soft hammer. There we go. There we go. Take a look at that. It's actually not horrible. It's definitely a little rich, but honestly, it's pretty good. I'd always rather a little rich than lean because they last longer that way. We'll clean that up. It'll look brand new. Let's take a look inside. Let's come over here so we can use the Kickstarter. Hey. Little piece of carbon. That's all that is. Just some carbon. There we go. So now we're going to take the cylinder nuts off and slide the sucker off. Now I got them all loose. Just like the cylinder head, the cylinder tends to be stuck down to the cases because of the gasket. So a lot of times you just have to kind of tap on it with a nice rubber mallet and just tap up. There we go. See, it's moving. So we should be good. Let's see. Yep, got her off. Couldn't do it with one hand. There we go. There's the piston. Come up here. Let's see. I always want to check the rod for any kind of free play. So you go up and down. Side to side's okay. So you don't want to see any up and down. That looks great. Oh. Nothing's out of color or weird in there. Looks good. So now we'll put that down like that. Let's take a look inside the cylinder. Looks pretty good. It should. So just remaining swell. See that little black spot? That's just some wear, and probably where the rings are leaking a little bit because that's the intake side. That's where the end gaps are. So we're going to clean that thing up, take the power valve out, clean it up really good, put it all back together, and it's going to be ready to rock and roll today. One of the things about doing a two-stroke top end is that here at the shop we take everything apart in the power valve and bead blast it and make sure it's all perfect before we go back together. That's why we are not the least expensive shop to do that. We are you know, I guess relatively expensive, but that's because we go further than most and we take everything apart, bead blast everything, put it all back together so it's like brand new when it goes back together. So we'll take that power valve apart now. Super simple power valve. I really like KTM power valves. Basically just 4 bolts. Now this is called the intermediate flange, and it is not going to want to come off just by pulling on it because it's actually glued down by some gasket makers. So I need your rubber mallet. You come in here. There you go. Comes right off. Look in there. You can see how caked up with carbon this is. This is the power valve flapper, and they get like that if you're running rich. Also, if you're just not hard on the gas a lot of times, which 300 riders generally aren't. They're usually in the rocks doing all the gnarly stuff. So it's kind of a normal thing. So now we're going to take these bolts out here and then over here. This is the limiter deciding how far down it goes to close. So you don't actually have to undo this. If you leave this the way it is, then it'll go all back together just right. You don't have to actually have to adjust the height when it's closed. So I just take this one out. If you're doing this yourself, you want to take a look and kind of pay attention to this side. I'll show you how it goes back together when we go back together, but this side is a little more complicated because that's the actual actuator hitting there. So again, you only need to take this bolt out. the last few bolts you got to take out for this power valve are these little Torx, and they're on both sides. You want to be really careful about these, because if you strip them out, it's a real pain to try to fix, right? Because it's in the cylinder, you can really mess things up. So I like to use a good sharp Torx bit that's the right size and try to keep real straight up and down on it. And there we go. And they shouldn't be in there with too much torque, because they're small bolts, but they get hot because they're part of the cylinder, so you got to be careful. So these little side guys to the power valve, you don't want to mix them up left to right, but the good thing is they say this one has a little L right on it, so you really can't botch it as long as you're paying attention. If you haven't watched our other video on building the power valve on this, it's actually pretty good. This video, I'm not going to go crazy tight into putting all this back together, because we have another whole video all about it. So this flapper still didn't want to come out. That's okay. That's normal. And take a little hammer. There we go. There we go. Cylinder all out. I'm going to go take this and put it into our ultrasonic cleaner. Alright, so to clean this guy up, it's really going to be hard to do it with much other than a bead blaster or a ton of patience and a sander or something. Anyway, we're going to take it to our sandblasting cabinet, which has bead media in it, and we're going to bead blast this thing off and make it nice and pretty. Alright, we got everything cleaned up. Power valve stuff's all clean. Intermediate flange all nice and clean. Cylinder is super duper nice and clean. So we're ready to put her back together. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description of this video of where you can see the in-depth putting back together of the power valve. I'm not going to do that in this video, like I said. Just going to put this thing back together. We'll slide it on and show you how that goes. Nice. Right. So we got the cylinder ready to put back on the piston. Now we got to get the piston ready to put back on the rod. Now, as you may have heard or know, the circlips that come with KTM pistons, this is a Vertex piston, but that's what KTM uses for their motors, OEM. Anyway, the circlips, the dreaded circlips, are brutal to install, for sure. And they make the easy clip ones, and those are great, but if you don't have them, let me show you how to make this work. First of all, one huge tip is to take the pin and put it into... One thing you need to make sure you do is decide which side of the bike you want to be installing the circlip on once you get the piston onto the connecting rod. I like to do it over here on the left side of the bike because there's nothing in the way. It's nice and open right here. It's easy to get to. So that means I need to put the circlip in to the right side while it's here on the bench, so that I'm dealing with the left side when it's up there. So what we do is you take a look here. See that little arrow? That arrow points forward or to exhaust. So it's going to sit in the bike like this, that going forward. So that means we need to put the circlip over here on the right, here on the bench, so that when we put it all together, we're over here working on the left. So you put the piston pin in and you put it right up to where it's going to go, and that acts as the backer for the pin, for the clip. If you don't have that and it's not in there, the clip wants to walk way down in there and you'll bend it and it's a big mess. So that's the first tip. You go like that. Then, oh, these things are gnarly. See how thick that thing is? So what you're going to do is you're going to take the end of it and put it down like that. And then I like to get it so this end right here is right in the opening right there. Now, this really isn't easy, but it can be done. So I take your thumb, hold over like that, And then you're going to come in here, and you're going to need a pick, and I like, this one's broken, and that's okay because I'm using the burly end of it, because if you use too thin of a pick, you'll bend it, because these clips really are super duper burly. So, come in here, get that pin back in it. Walk it over like that, and you're pushing in really tight with your thumb at the same time. So we're close. Then take a flat blade, kind of get that down there like that. You can see we're down in there. Now you can't let your thumb off of this thing because it will come out like that. Then we're going to walk it around. So with the flat blade, you can kind of scoot around and get that to go down in its home. Bing! Just like that. I know, that is tough, don't get me wrong. That is not easy to do, but it can be done. Now I'll show you how you do it when it's on the bike. It's actually a lot easier when it's up on the bike. I've gotten it ready. Got a rag here. You got to do this. If you don't put a rag here, you will lose the clip down into the motor, and then it's a nightmare. I mean, anyway. Already got the new wrist pin bearing in here. I got assembly lube on it, so it's all ready to go. Take the piston, slide it over the connecting rod, slide the pin into place. Now, like I said, this side's actually easier once it's on here because the pin is held tight against this other side, against this other clip. So you're going to come in, going to have the clip like that down, and we're going to come in like that, and it's home. Again, I want this into the clip in that hole. So line that up like that. Thumb tight on top of that. Nice thick pick so it doesn't bend. Come in here to the hole, and we're going to walk it on. And then flat blade. You can put it down here like this. I'm going to take that flat blade, I'm going to walk it around. One of the keys to this is keeping a finger over this thing so it doesn't want to pop out. And it's hard. It's definitely easier to do the other clips, but like that. Make sure it's down in its groove. Boom. Just like that. Clip is in its home. Didn't scratch the piston up. It can be done, folks. Just like that. Alright. Time to put the rings on the piston. I've already checked the ring end gap on these. I will actually make a short video on how to check ring end gap. It's not up there yet, so maybe by the time you see this it will be, but take a look for ring end gap installation or ring end gap check on our channel, and we'll definitely get that up there. But here's one little tip as you're putting these together. See that little mark right there? On Vertex it's an N. Any kind of mark, that always goes up, right? Put our base gasket on. So get our cylinder. I like to put a little bit of the red line assembly lube on there. Some people do this dry, some people do it two-stroke oil. The assembly lube is good, it burns up really fast, goes away, doesn't cause any problems with the spark plug or anything like that. Now we're ready to go. come in here, take your hands and squeeze those rings down. And there we go. It should just slide nice and easy on there, just like that. If it's not sliding nice and easy, stop. You can bend rings and cause all kinds of problems. But that felt really good. We'll check it by rotating the Kickstarter. No nuts on the thing, and it rotates up and down nice and smooth without moving the cylinder. That means you did it right. It's working good. Rings aren't scraping on anything. Now it's time to put the cylinder nuts on, tighten those down. So when you're doing this, the power valve right here, the actuator, anyway, it's going to be in the way if it's down. So you got to move that up so you can get the nuts on. But then when you're ready to install the actuator, they need to be down when it's all ready to go, because in a resting state, they're down and the flapper's closed and everything's closed. We're ready to put the cylinder head on and torque those bolts down. We'll put the power valve actuators on, and then we'll kind of put everything on and see if this thing fires up. We're going to take our O-rings, put them on the cylinder. All nice and flat, looking good. Then we're going to set our cylinder head down, put our bolts in, torque it down. On KTMs, they use these little tiny dowel guys to line everything up. And they match up with holes here in the cylinder head. So I want to make sure you get those lined up. Got new crush washers on them. Like everything on your motorcycle, you want to start it by hand so you don't cross thread things. Alright, so we're going to torque the cylinder head bolts down. The torque spec is like 27 Newton meters. Let's see what that is in foot-pounds if you don't have a foot-pound thing. I have a digital guy, so it's super easy for me, but let me find out what 27 Newton meters is for you. I'm sure someone's already beat me to this in the comments. So 19.9 foot-pounds, so 20 foot-pounds. So we'll set it at 20. You want to do them in a crisscross pattern, so we did this back one, we're going to go forward. Alright, now it is time to hook the power valve actuator back up, bolt those things on there, and start putting this thing back together and fire it up. Now, we'll pop this on here. Take our little guy, slide him up in the hole. So you see him come out the top. Flip it around, you're all good to go. I almost forgot. I told you I was going to show you how to fix that radiator nipple that had gotten bent. So here we go. Let me show you that. The thing about fixing things on radiators is that if you send it to a radiator shop to fix things, they do a good job. But honestly, most of what they do is like bending, pushing, pulling, and hoping for the best. So for this one, what we're going to do is, it wasn't leaking amazingly enough, but with that big of a divot in there and everything, we want to at least kind of get it a little more round. So I got a pair of channel locks, and we're going to start by just doing that. There we go. Then got an 8mm socket. I'm going to kind of hammer that in there. What we want to do is we want to get that divot out. So we want something to kind of get in there and poke it out. So come in here, kind of bend that out. Eventually, if you're careful, you'll get it a lot more round than it was. And that's the key, is just to have it better. Like I said, you're not, once you bend these things, you kind of can't really ever get them back perfect. I think that's going to be, we'll take it. It's not perfect, but it's more round than it was. That divot's basically out of there. I think she'll seal up. All right, for the moment of truth. So when you're just done putting one of these things back together, you're ready to start it, it always pays to just take a mental checklist and kind of go back around the bike, make sure you know it's got fluids in it. So we just put coolant in it. Obviously it's got gas in it. We'll turn the gas on. It's got oil in it. We checked that. I think everything should be good. Choke's on. Let's come over here. We're just going to use a starter, electric starter. And we'll see what happens. So another little thing that I like to do is I like to run them, especially these TEs or XCWs, with the cap off, so that you can watch and see when that coolant starts to flow. Because it's got a thermostat in it, you want to make sure that thermostat's not sticking closed and causing the thing to overheat. And you'll know immediately when it opens, because that coolant will start flowing really fast. So here we go. There we go. Awesome. It's got electron on it, so generally they idle pretty good. Turn the choke off. See, it's smoking good because all that, it's smoking a whole bunch because of all that assembly lube I put in there. So while we're doing this, we're going to warm it all the way up. We're going to make sure that there's no leaks anywhere. It's a beautiful sound, isn't it? I love two-stroke so very much. Alright, we're going to warm her up, check everything out. We'll see you here in just a second. Well, we got her all done, ready to go. Bike runs great, fresh top end. Everything's all ready to rock and roll. Get it back to the customer. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we've earned your subscription. If we have, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Get the little notification bell clicked, because that way you'll know all the new videos we do. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day. And I really hope you get out